Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first speaker. Her name is Jenn Terry-Tharpe. She's the former talent acquisition technology head for AT&T, and now working at Joveo, which is a programmatic advertising platform, which she can tell you more about. Jenn?
Thanks, Matt.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you everybody for your time here today. I would like to share with you some opportunities that, I'm not the be all end all, but some opportunities that no matter what your role in the talent acquisition process, you can maybe take action to. So first, a bit about myself. Like Max said, I am currently the VP of Strategic Initiatives at Joveo, which is a programmatic job platform, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about that during the presentation. Before that, I worked for over 20 years as the head of TA and employer branding. I did some HR tech work, some diversity work at AT&T, and I am a lover of board games, really bad reality TV, and a huge college football fan. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you will hear lots more about all of those things. To get started, I wanted to start with employer brand, right? That's sort of the handshake that we have with our candidates. So anybody who has worked in employer brand knows that we always struggle to be true to yourself and to your brand. And this is no different, right? A remote hiring initiative or moving to more of a remote workforce really still requires you to be you. If you're a more formal company, you need to probably show that even in your remote workforce view, right? So I hear a lot, right? I've worked remote for probably 15 of the last 20 years. And I hear all the time from friends, oh my gosh, it must be so nice to wear your pajamas to work. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I work for AT&T. I don't wear my pajamas to work, right? Like I wear a jacket or a scarf or some nice jewelry. And so really one of the biggest things, if you're an employer branding, that you can take away from the globalization and the work from home trend that is evolving is show what remote looks like for your company. This is really your time to set mutual expectations. If a candidate is looking for that environment where it's really okay that they be on the beach while they're working remote, like show that. But the reality is if you're a more conservative company and working remote looks like working from a home office, like I am today, it's really the time to show that too. And some of the best ways to do that are to show that with actual employees. Do things like show virtual offices, take tours, that sort of stuff. The next item is marketing. And this is really a big opportunity, but also a risk, right? So if you're going from having very location specific talent pools, globalizing and working from home and having the opportunity to sort of spread your wings a little bit further allows you to expand your job search. If you're no longer reliant on hiring in the Silicon Valley and you can hire anywhere, you can expand your job. One of the things that becomes difficult in that for an employer is the thought of, well, I just have one job requisition. So where do I put that job requisition, right? It's like a real tactical, but a real life problem. And the reality is with technology like Joveo or programmatic job advertising in general, you can take that single job and expand it to a multitude of locations where that talent pool might be richer or your cost to employ might be lower. The other thing to be thoughtful with your marketing is particularly if you're in an industry where a portion, say your corporate offices, are going to move virtual, but you really still have sort of your point of sale employees, people that work in retail stores or maybe in a hospital or a lab, that really, you're not really, don't have the opportunity to globalize those, right? Like they need to be where the people are. And so just as part of your marketing initiatives and as also as part of your employment branding, keep in mind what your message says to those people that are still having to work in a location specific environment. And again, programmatic job advertising gets the right target to the right talent. So if they're local or if you have the opportunity to expand, you can do that all with one click without having to open multiple job requisitions. The next area is interviews. So this is one that's really, really interesting for me because in my time at AT&T, I had a real position on this, and that was that you needed to lead with candidate experience no matter what. Video interviews are just like phone interviews or just like face-to-face interviews. You do whatever is the most convenient to the candidate and to the process, right? But now that we can't really see each other face to face and we might want to get that communal feeling of being able to see someone before you hire them, that sort of thing, it's really important that you still lead with candidate experience. If at all possible, don't require a bunch of complicated downloads or any, do what works best. To me, it's sort of like, do I call you on your home phone or do I call you on your wireless, right? So be flexible. But then most importantly, have empathy. As I put this down, I thought I'm going to have to explain this a little bit to the audience because here's the deal. I don't know how many of you have kids schooling from home right now. My dogs are right outside the back door barking like crazy trying to get in, right? Like life happens. And when everybody's work life is happening from their home, it's already a stressful situation to be in an interview. Imagine being in an interview and just knowing that your 2-year-old is like standing behind the glass door, right? So just know as employers, it's really our opportunity to lead with empathy and to convey the need for that to our hiring managers. And then so all of that happens and you find the perfect employee and it's time to bring them on board. But really, they're not probably going to go to an office to do this, especially if you're globalizing your workforce on an ongoing basis. So how can you make that new hire experience still feel like one of those top 5 moments? Like when you get a new job, it's a really big deal. So think of virtual ways to generate excitement. I think of things like leading up to the first day, things like emails, texts, maybe a video from the hiring manager or trainer. Consider a virtual live component. I have to give huge props to one of my partners in crime at AT&T, Heather O'Donnell. You can look her up on LinkedIn if you're working on a virtual onboarding. She did a great job even before this in preparing a common experience for all employees, no matter their location or position. So something where in a virtual setting, it feels like you're really in a live component of an onboarding, right? Like you get to come in, you get to see people that are obviously not recorded and talking and interacting, maybe some hand raising if you're using Zoom so that people can get involved, polls, things like that. That virtual live component really goes a long way in establishing community. It, and I would be remiss, right? That would be great even if you had the best onboarding virtual live event ever, if I can't get to it on my company issued laptop, that's a problem, right? So above all else, one of the biggest challenges with onboarding in a virtual environment is being sure that everyone that is getting ready to start work and that is excited to be there and that you've done all this work building up to this point, make sure that they can get in and have access. And finally, once you have employees here, teaming in a virtual way is often difficult. So, like I said, for about 17 of my last 20 years, my team has been predominantly virtual. And it's a different kind of dynamic, right? Like you see things that are happening in their real lives in a much more accelerated fashion. And that tends to accelerate personal connections. Because the reality is, for all of you on this webinar now, before this, you didn't know I had dogs, right? And if I had kids, you would know that I have them and they're in school, right? And so because we are literally giving our colleagues a window into our personal home, it really accelerates those personal connections. And there's a varied level of comfort in that, right? Like I'm a pretty open book and I'm glad to have you in my home and to tell you that my dogs are outside. But different people have different comfort levels with that. And as a peer, a colleague, a leader, you have to just be cognizant of that and make choices that allow for everyone to exist in the virtual team where they're comfortable. A good way to do that is optional activities. We here at Joveo, we do a lot of happy hours. We have a book club. We have some Slack channels that are more for personal things. I was not afraid to share here on my screen that this was actually a virtual happy hour. I believe it was where I got introduced to the Joveo team. And you might notice I am the one with the giant pink wig. I felt like it was a time for fun. And so I challenged people, to put on a funny face. And our head of sales dressed up like a little cowboy. We had a James Bond, a few others, but we also had others that just had their names on their screen or just their daily person in their place, right? So knowing to normalize all of that and to make people feel comfortable wherever they're at is a crucial component to sort of closing the loop from employment brand all the way to bringing people on. And if you do this part well, these examples of teaming and catering to people where they're at, those become the proof points in your employment brand, and you can continue to go full circle and really represent what your company stands for with their remote workforce, all in a cycle. So I thank you for the time today. I will be around and on the panel to answer questions. And with that, I am going to turn it back to Matt.